Welcome back to the King's Law podcast. Um, Today, the topic is God or the law versus Judaism, and what it is to be part of Judaism versus being Jewish. I like to remind everyone that everything I talk about is in law. So when I reference a law, you can look it up in the Torah. You can look it up in the Bible. I'm talking about Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. Or you can go to thekingslaw.com. That is like an encyclopedia for the law. It's all written in modern day English, right? And it is to be translated and is to be free for you to use, and anyone in the world to use eventually, right, when it's translated in different languages, and be self-sufficient so people can go and search. It's searchable. You can search by category, right? Search by categories like women, sex, marriage, property, right? So you can see laws pertaining to those subjects. And it is also searchable by text, right? You can type and it'll filter the list for you for certain, you can type words in there, and if the word is, if the law contains the word, then it'll be part of the filtered list so that you can find what you need to look for fast without having to do a bunch of reading and things like that. So it requires less dedication, which is not necessarily the goal, but it's to make sure that you can incorporate it in your life easily and always have it on you for free, and that everybody will have a copy for free, right? You don't have to have a Bible. You don't have to go to a synagogue, church, mosque, anything like that. It's there available for free, as long as you have maybe a phone or the internet, right? So let's get to the topic. I'm talking about God versus Judaism. And when I say Judaism, I'm talking about the religion Judaism, right? Because there is to be Jewish and to be part of Judaism, which is a religious construct like Christianity or being Muslim or Catholicism. And I want to make sure I'm clear about what I'm saying when I say Jewish and Judaism. From what I know, I've read the Bible about 3 times or more, 3.5 times, or 2.5 times, one or the other. And the first time that I see the word, because the Bible was about, like, not about, but the first journey, right, in the beginning of the Bible talks about, Abraham, and then leading up to going into Egypt, and then Moses leading the people out of Egypt, getting the law from God on Mount Sinai in Egypt, and then going into Israel. He never actually made it to Israel, but his son did. And then, Israel continuing on the land of Israel, the nation continuing on the land of Israel, and then eventually being destroyed because of their fall from God, right? Their fall from God's commandments. And in those stories, the word Jew or Jewish is never mentioned from my recollection. If I recall, the first time I heard the word or read the word Jew in the Bible or in the books of prophecy was in the book of Esther. And that was during a time period when Israel was occupied. So Israel, the nation, was part of another nation called Persia, and under the control of the Persian king. And he had a wife, and his wife disrespected him to a degree, and he consulted with his people about what he should do about that. To my recollection, I'm not reading the Bible right now. I didn't prepare and read this story right before this podcast, but to my recollection, he was disrespected. I think he called for her. She didn't come. She was like, look, I ain't got time for that. She ain't come. And the people who he consulted with about it, they were like, look, man, it might not be a big deal to you, but if your wife can disrespect you like that, then how about everybody else's wife in the kingdom who's not the actual king of Persia, right? If the precedent is set that the king's wife can be disrespectful like that, then everybody else's wife can definitely be super disrespectful if she's allowed to do that. So you got to set a precedent and get rid of this woman. So he got rid of that woman, and he didn't want to be by himself. So he, put out a, he put out a call for, a wife after that, and he started doing interviews, and the women lined up, and one of the women was Esther, who happened to be a descendant of Israel, Jacob, right? And during this time, while the Persians had occupation over many countries, one of them being Israel, the groups of people, because a lot of them, they weren't all separate at this time. At this time, they were all under the control of Persia. And, the different groups of people were getting mixed, right? Because they were all under one kingdom. Kind of like something like America, where you have all different types of groups of people coming here, right? And maybe, America has different territories around the world, and, some countries have different territories around the world, and those cultures are getting mixed, right? So there were a lot of people who saw the Israelites, and they saw that they were, a blessed people, and that they were a good people, and they decided to follow the same customs that the Israelites followed. And the name that was used for those people in this book, to my recollection, was Jewish. And that was the first time I can recall the word Jew or Jewish being used in the Bible. It was a word that references a person who follows the law that was given to the Israelites, the law that was given to Moses, right, which was given to the Israelites and is their law, right? And that was what the word is for. Now, when I'm talking about Judaism, I'm talking about the modern day synagogue in Judaism, which has rabbis, and those rabbis had rules in a book called the Talmud. Now, the Torah is literally the books of law. The Torah is just Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The Talmud is a separate book that is written by rabbis or a rabbi. I'm not sure because I never read it. And it has rules in it. That's where you get the bar mitzvah and different rules that are supposed to help you follow the law. But like I've said many a time before in different podcasts, there is a law in the law and many a law in the law that tell you to follow the law and do no more and do no less. And more specifically, they tell you do not add to the law or take from the law. So if you write a book saying I'm going to create new laws to make you follow the law, then you are breaking the law, because you are not supposed to add to the law or take away from the law. Who are you, a man, to perfect what God delivered to you by hand and rules the universe? It doesn't make sense. And we really have to approach things humbly with that thought process before we try to change what is, what always was, and what always will be. If your creator, who you believe created the universe that you exist in and gives you the life that comes in and out of your lungs for you to move around, gives you instructions on how to survive in that universe, and one of the instructions on how to survive in that universe is don't do any more than these instructions and don't do any less than these instructions. I think you should take it at his word and just do that and don't add to those instructions. And that right there is breaking the law in itself. Now, when I'm talking about these subjects, right, these are not my opinions. This is just the law. And I'm giving you, because, right, we have these religious constructs, these groups that exist, and they are all based on belief in God. And they tell you our way is how you get close to God and how you live a better life, right? Now, that may be believable and you may believe that. So you may be born a Christian and that might not work out, because a lot of the Christian culture these days is just do as you will, and then if anything goes wrong or you did something wrong, just scream out Jesus and everything will be okay, right? So as you get older, you might realize, like, hey, God is a fair and just God, and it's not just the luck of the draw of what type of life I live, right? There's something I had to do, and this belief that I can do whatever I want and then just say a name and my life will be all right. And then the next guy, he might do the same thing and he might die of cancer, right? It doesn't add up, right? There has to be a recipe, since God is a fair God, to get good results. So you might find another religion which may be a little more on track and a little more in sync with the law, but then has its own rules, and you decide, okay, well, this isn't for me, but I'll go to that, right? And I talked about that before when we talk about a lot of people switch from Christianity to Islam, right? Or, you might move from Islam to Judaism, or Christianity to Judaism, right? And for people who are making those moves, that's why I have these conversations about all of the different religions versus what is in the law, to show you that they're outside of law, so you can leave that alone and just follow the law. Because they all, claim to follow the God who gave you the law, but then they add to the law, or they subtract to the law, or subtract from the law, which is outside of law. So if a body is supposed to bring you closer to God, why would it be outside of God's laws? You see? And so if we go back to the subject, one, they have a book called the Talmud. The Talmud has a set of rules. And I can say for a fact, what made me look at, because I didn't even know really about the Talmud until maybe like 4 or 5 months ago. I watched a movie on Netflix. It was an Adam Sandler movie. It was like a kid's movie. It was You Were Not Invited to My Bar Mitzvah. And one of the parts, they were, in the movie, they had to, read the law, study the law and do some type of not a performance, but like kind of like a reading, like you would stand up and do, at the church or whatever else, right? And the kid was like, why do we have to do this? And the teacher was like, because it's part of God's commandments. You have to have a bar mitzvah. And me, I take seriously the website, www.thekingslaw.com. I take it seriously because I took years to make sure I carefully scoured the entire books of law to make sure I got them all and make sure I put them in layman's term for people to understand, right? So when I heard that, I was like, is that something I missed? That's literally the thought that I went through my head. Like, I literally pressed pause on the movie and I was like, yo, am I tripping? I started looking on my phone like, where in, the Old Testament does it say you have to have a bar mitzvah? And at this time, like I just said, I had never heard of the Talmud, right? And there is no reference of a bar mitzvah in the books of law or in the prophecies, right? Now, what I can say is there is a law that says you are to study and teach the law to your children continuously, and you are to do that without ceasing, like do it all the time. And doing that once when you're 13 does not add up to that, so that doesn't fall within that. And if that is to enforce that, it's not the same thing. So you should just follow the law and just teach it continuously. But I looked, first I looked on my phone, couldn't find it. But while I was looking on my phone, one of the things that came back on Google, it was saying, no, there's a list that's part of Judaism. It's called the Talmud, and that's a set of laws that were created by the rabbis. And, I don't do a bunch of religious research because, I've been following the law for a few years now, just making sure I perfect that, because that's a job in itself, right? It's a process. For all you people who say, hey, man, this guy's just preaching to us to be perfect. I'm not preaching to you to be perfect because I'm not perfect. I'm not even saying I'm a good guy. I'm just giving you the information so you could have the tools to correct your life if you so choose to, and you should. Why wouldn't you want to correct your life? I want to correct my life, and I'm not saying my life is perfect. I'm working at it every day. And when I say working at it every day, I'm not sitting here looking at this website and reading the Bible 15 hours a day, but I do know when my life is being dimmed, right? I do know, hey, something is wrong. My energy's off, or something's off, right? And then I assess my life. Now, if your energy is off and you really need to assess your life and you don't know the law, what are you assessing your life against? You see, you can't even correct yourself because you don't know. And let's say you want to assess your life against good and bad, right? How do you know what good and bad is if you haven't read the creator of the universe rules? You don't know what good and bad is at this point in time, right? Without that instruction, you're just kind of going with your gut feeling, which is usually right? Because God is the force in you. So it is usually right, but you can't really fine tune things because you don't know. You might turn to different books. You might turn to different self-help people online and things like that. And they're all just telling you what they learned in school or what they learned through their mistakes in life or from their bad habits. You see? And if they not preaching, if they're not preaching, but because I'm not preaching, right? I'm just giving you some information. But if they're not telling you how to correct yourself versus law, then they're just telling you something that may or may not work for you, period. Right? And it may not even be good at all. Because if they don't have a moral compass that matches the law, they might be knocking you out of sync, further out of sync with the universe. They might be telling you something that's going to knock you way out of sync, right? So for you to make sure that you have the right compass where you can navigate, good versus evil, you have to have the rule book for the universe so good versus evil. And that's what this is about, moving away from man-made instruction and moving towards, if you believe in God, if you believe that God created the universe that you live in right now and gives you the air that you breathe in your lungs, right? Why wouldn't you follow his instructions on how to survive and thrive in his universe? And a lot of people don't know that it's out there. But back to Judaism. Yes, they have a book called the Talmud that was written by rabbis that has its own rules. Something like Sharia law for Islam's, right? For Islam, right? Same basic principle. You got your imams or whoever who are part of this sect who have this book, and then you have that. And from what I've read, this book is claimed to be not outside of law because there are rules that enforce the law. But that doesn't make sense. If you have the creator of the universe, right, and he gives you a set of rules and he says these are the only rules you need, you're good as long as you follow these, don't do any more and don't do any less, and you say I gotta add, then you are outside of law because it tells you not to add anything or take anything. So there's no need for the book. And the book is actually outside of law. It's called sin, or people. That's what people use the word sin for. You know what I mean? That's something outside of law. And in previous podcasts, I've already mentioned, there are a bunch of things. Some things pertaining to women, like you got to cover your hair, which is not in law, but they relate that to God in some way. And then you have all these celebrations, sort of like Christianity, right? That has Easter and whatever else. They have what is it called? I forget what it's, Hanukkah and other things, but they do celebrate, the celebrations that are in law, like Passover, Yom Kippur, right? Which I believe Yom Kippur is a Day of Atonement, or not, I don't know, but they do have the days of observation that fall within law, which you can find in the law, right? So you go to kingslaw.com, you can find those. I can't shoot them off the top of my head right now, but there are a lot of celebrations that we have in America that fall on the same times of these celebrations, like Easter always falls on the same time as Passover, so they kind of they I don't know how that happened like that, but maybe they know people don't like to follow the law, and so they try to make you follow it by making you not work for a pagan holiday. So you don't complain that they're trying to make you follow God's rules, because technically they're not allowed to make laws that follow for religious reasons in America. Or maybe it's just something to make you forget, right? But the Passover is always the same time as Easter. And I believe, I forget what celebration it is, but there's a celebration that always falls around 4th of July, I believe, the Feast of Weeks. And the Feast of Weeks is like a big cookout that you have from day to day. And then you have times where you're not supposed to work. I think it's like the first and last day. I gotta look it up again. And that falls around 4th of July, which most people have cookouts on 4th of July. And then you have the Day of Atonement. And Judaism respects those holidays, but then adds to those holidays with things like Hanukkah. And traditions like the dreidel and whatever else, none of that is in the Bible, and it's like, I don't know where that comes from, right? It might come from their culture, let's say the person comes from the Caucasus Mountains or wherever else, right? They're bringing something into their culture, but then relating it to God and saying it's part of being Jewish, but there's not being Jewish. And we talked about women having to cover their hair, and then we talk about the yarmulke, right? And that really surprised me, the yarmulke, because I don't really know. Like when you go into the Semitic land, which is the Middle East, right, and you go into the kind of like the keystone in the Semitic land, which is the land that falls around Israel and Jordan and Lebanon. When you really take a look at Jewish people and Muslim people, they're kind of the same. Like they have the same things, that traditions that fall outside of law. Like we look at the men, right? Muslim men have on a kufi and Jewish men have on the yarmulke. Neither one of those come from the law. And when you look at their wives have their heads covered on both sides, and neither one of them follows the law. And they both have I guess historical ties to the age 13, which I don't really follow, right? Because in Islam, like people from the Semitic land who follow Islam, they believe themselves to be the sons of Ishmael. Ishmael was the son that don't crucify me, I think it's Abraham had with his wife, not with his wife, but with the servant, because his wife wasn't having a child, so he had the first child with the servant, or I don't know what you would call her, his wife's handmaid, and the son's name was Ishmael. And then the wife got jealous of the handmaid after she had the baby, so she started beating her up. And then they when the boy was 13, the dad let her leave with the child. And at that time, the child, I don't think the child was 13, and she walked off into the desert, and he was about to die. She had to pick him up, and she got him to a well. So that is the Muslim story, right? Because they identify as the sons of Ishmael, which in all actuality makes sense, because when we talk about the Semitic land and we talk about Israel, the prophecies say, and this, you've seen it already happen in real life, right? That Israel will be disbanded and be spread all throughout the earth. They don't know who they are, but I know one thing I seen with my own eyes was when I was in Chicago. I was in college. I used to work as a valet parker, and I used to work with a lot of people who were refugees from Iraq. They would just be on my shifts for some reason. Like, it was either, there was me, and then it was mostly Mexican, and it was like guys from Iraq, and then guys from like guys from I think it's Czechoslovakia, something like that. It was a country that was having a genocide at that point in time in like Eastern Europe, and there was a lot of guys who was fleeing from there who were being valet parkers at that time. Like, they have horrible stories, like their families being slaughtered and stuff like that. It was a genocide going on. This is back in like 2010, and a lot of the guys from Iraq, they would talk about their lineage, and they would say, yeah, in our houses in Iraq, they show pictures and stuff. In their houses in Iraq, they would trace their lineage all the way back to Noah. And when you look at the law, when you look at the prophecies, you would say, oh, that's impossible, because people from Israel were disbanded and spread all around the planet. They don't know who they are, right? But when you look at their story, they say, no, we're sons of Ishmael. If they branched off at the time of Abraham, then yes, they would have their lineage like that. So at the time, I didn't really get it, but now I get it. I was like, okay, they've been there since forever, right? But that kind of coincides with Judaism, because they have the bar mitzvah, and I don't understand what the importance around the age 13 outside of sons of Ishmael, but that's not part of the law. When I saw that in the movie, I stopped. I looked if it was part of the law. It's not part of the law. It was something that was created by the rabbis and put into this book called the Talmud. And the Talmud has a bunch of rules, from what I understand. I have never read it. I just did a little research on those things that were outside of law, as far as like covering the hair and things like that, because I was really curious to know where they came from. And if you are part of a religious body, right, and they make you do things in the name of God that are outside of God's laws and commandments, then that's not bad. I know that's the argument I make in every case, but it's just logic. Like, if you know God, and God has a set of rules that he gave to you, and in those rules it says many a time, do no more and do no less than this. Then you join a group that tells you got to do more in the name of God or do less in the name of God. That doesn't add up. And no matter what excuse they give to you, it would never add up, because in a lot of cases people give it to their rabbi or to their prophet, that their prophet told them to do these things, but in the name of God. But I've gone over a law a few times that tells you, if a prophet comes and he tells you that the sky is going to turn green, and the sky turns green, if he tells you to not follow the law and to go after other gods, you are not supposed to listen to him. It's a test from God. You're supposed to keep following the law, and you're supposed to put him to death. And that's not me saying that. This is just me giving you the information to take with it and to make the right choice. And that is, right now, is Law 467. That's Deuteronomy 13, 1-5. It says, if there is a prophet that has dreams and the dreams come true and he tells you to serve other gods, do not follow him. God is testing you, your loyalty to law. You should continue to follow all God's commandments and put the prophet to death. That's what it says. And in the case of the rabbis and their ability to add to law and take away from law. No. And then they can say, I'm not adding to the law because I'm creating this book called the Talmud. But if you have a religious body that people follow to be close to God, that's where you have the duty to tell them what to do in the name of God. And the only thing you can tell them is to follow the law at that point in time, because the law tells you do no more and do no less. Right? So if you, in the name of God, you all come together as a body, and then you make a whole nother rule book. At that point in time, you are out of law. By law. It's not my opinion. It's just fact. Like, you could say these laws help you follow the law. No, you following the law helps you follow the law. Just study the law. What do you need another book for? It doesn't make any sense. But you know, that's the point that's made with most of these religions. And with that being said, you know, Judaism, because a lot of times, you know, we get into these conversations, people can get very defensive. Like I've said before, all the religions do something well, and they all fall short in some place, because they all, you know, don't focus on God's laws and commandments. Right? So Judaism does many things well as far as making sure that they place importance on the law and you following the law, right? And you know, respecting the Sabbath, which is very, very, very important. Something that's not observed really in Christianity. And the importance of rest days and things like that. And you know, we all do things well in different religions, and we all fall short in some places. Because I would even say, even if you go as far east, because I brought up the example of Japan a few times, and them being idol worshippers. One, that is wrong. I'm not condoning that in any way with this statement, but they don't have any drugs in their country. You can't get drugs in their country. The only place where you can see people who may look like they do drugs in their country is in Osaka, in a place called America Village, which is like an America sitting there, like basically it's like a satire of America, or like a place that is, you know, supposed to be like America, and you go to the park and there's people who are dressed kind of loosely, looking kind of shabby because they dress to the T out there, and you got CBD stores. You don't see that anywhere else in Japan. And you see, you know, a guy sitting at the park looking like he's selling drugs. You ain't gonna see that anywhere else in Japan, right? And that is very true. America is, for the most part, on drugs. You know, and I talk about why that's wrong in another podcast. It's called God versus, I think, it's something about, you know, God and drugs. Is God okay with you doing drugs? Something like that. And that is Judaism in a nutshell, and why it falls outside of law. Now, when we talk about Judaism, that is not to be confused with being Jewish. Like I said earlier in this podcast, Jewish is a term that I saw in the book of Esther that was used to reference folks who were not descendants of Israel, right? Israel, the person, who still followed the same laws and customs, the Mosaic law. And that was a name given to them. So when you hear, and now this is something that is another problem with Judaism, they say they're a part of Judaism, which makes them Jewish. So me and my husband, who, you know, subscribe to the religion of Judaism, have a child, and that child is born Jewish. Ladies and gentlemen, it's impossible for you to be born Jewish. Being Jewish is a decision that you make. You either follow the law or you don't. You know what I'm saying? And if you are Jewish in America, claiming to be Jewish, and you don't, and you shave your beard and you do whatever you want on a day-to-day basis, you are not Jewish. You may be a insubordinate follower of the Judaism religion, but you can't call yourself Jewish. That would be the same as you calling yourself a vegan, but you eat a beef burger every morning. And you say, well, I'm vegan because both my parents were vegan and they had me as a child. if you was born of two vegan parents and you decide when you become an adult to eat beef burgers every day, you're not vegan anymore. You can't be born vegan. It's based on what you eat day to day, right? And you say, okay, well, nobody's perfect. You just said you weren't perfect earlier. Well, okay, that is very true, but I submit to law and I acknowledge the law and I acknowledge my imperfections and my anything I do outside of the law, I acknowledge it as wrong, right? But you have a lot of people who claim to be Jewish because they were born of people who follow Judaism, who don't respect the law. They think it's like they just like people in Christianity. They don't respect the law. They think it's old. I've literally heard people say, "Oh no, that stuff is old. There's no punishment if you don't listen to that. That's irrelevant. That was for back when we were, basically Neanderthals and cavemen to keep us from hurting ourselves, and now it's not relevant." Your God, who created this universe, always was, is, and always will be, would never deliver to you something that is irrelevant and time based. It doesn't make any sense. And if it is, and that's the reality that you accept, then you shouldn't call yourself Jewish, because Jewish is a word for people who decide to follow the lifestyle of an Israelite, which is someone who follows the Mosaic laws. So if you choose to say that is irrelevant, which is blasphemous to the law, right? Because it says you should follow everything, all the statutes and commandments of the law over and over again. Then how could you call yourself Jew? That does not meet the definition of Jewish. You might be a descendant of people who follow Judaism, but you are not Jewish. Period. So let's make sure that we don't confuse people, because that turns people off to being Jewish, and it's not the same thing. With that being said, I think it's important, because a lot of the world is confused. They're being told that they can be born Jewish, but ladies and gentlemen, you cannot be born Jewish. This is a daily choice. Period. And it doesn't mean that you have to be perfect, but you should. Like, let's say I say I'm a vegan, but one day I have a beef burger, or I might have some chicken from time to time, and I'm like, yeah, I know it's wrong, but for the most part, I do these things, and I strive to be vegan. I'm vegan. You know what I mean? That's different from you eating a burger every day, saying I was just born vegan because my parents was vegan. It's two different things. And yeah, to be vegan, you don't have to not eat meat. The rule of not eating meat for being vegan, that's something that was back in the day. I'm a new vegan. I'm like, bro, you just not vegan. You're not a new vegan. You just not vegan. Because the word vegan literally means you don't eat animal products. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any that argument just makes no sense. And anybody making that argument, you make no sense. Period. Like, you gotta relax, man. You're confusing a lot of people and turning them away from God's laws and commandments. So I want to give you the laws that are relevant to this conversation. Right now, if you go to www.thekingslaw.com, at this point in time, it's 2024, it's January. Law number 431, which references Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 2. It says, do not add or remove any words from God's laws. And then what is now law 466, which references Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 32. It says, do all that God commands and do not add to his commandments or take from them. So if you create a book of laws that you call God's laws that do not like, and you have the book of law, which is the Torah, literally. That doesn't fall inside the law. That's breaking. You teaching people to break the law, and you are breaking the law by making it. And you can see the effects of this long term, right? You start saying things like, you start conflating Judaism with Jewish over time, right? And you become entitled because you equate being a law-abiding citizen of the universe with a born right, because you created this religion, which is like saying you've been born Catholic or been born Christian, which doesn't give you any salvation at all, right? Because you're not living inside the law that helps you resonate better with this universe, right? You created a culture, and even though your culture is based on following the law, these synagogues and rabbis who created this other book, which you did not deny and incorporate in your life by subscribing to Judaism, has led you to where we're at right now. Where we're at right now is January 2024, right? And when you live outside the law and try to create different things, even though these people probably are the most law centered group of people on the planet, right? It doesn't matter. Once it says follow all the law, and if you choose to live outside the law, it ain't gonna work out. And we can see that right now, because this is probably the most law-centric group of people in the world, right? And one, if you go to Israel, is majority Muslim, and the Muslims have control over a lot of the sites that people would say are important to their Christian or Judaism religion, right? So that plays into that. And then we're at a place in the world where the world is at war right now, right? And the two groups that are, at war in the Middle East are, Israel, which is a secular nation, but has a lot of Jewish people in it, Orthodox Judaism, and people who follow Judaism. And then I'm not saying this to people as if they do not respect the law. Don't get that confused, right? I've been to Israel a lot and spent some time there, and these people do fear God and follow the law. They put these we're talking about on all businesses out. They put these scrolls. I don't know what's written on the scrolls because you can't read what's on them because they're in these metal cases, right? And sometimes plastic cases rolled up, so you can't really read them. But they put that on every doorpost. They respect the Sabbath, right? They rest on the Sabbath. These are things that you wouldn't do and observe, and somewhat to an American, these are things that are inconvenient, would inconvenience you, right? There's not something a normal person would do unless they were trying to have respect for their creator, right? So I'm not saying that these people are overtly disrespectful in any way, but when you have another book that adds to the law or has laws in it to quote unquote help you follow the law, that's just outside the law. And we see how far these things go, because right now, they're at war, and it's not necessarily a war that everybody wants to join in, because people can kind of feel it in their spirit, right? When you create a nation on the land that is supposed to be Israel, right? That is the land that people understand to be where Israel was. And it's a secular nation, and you have things like gay pride parades. And I'm not saying that everybody's in agreement with these events that take place in that country, and every man is just a man. But there comes a point where you have to take a stand and just say no, right? When you're doing something like that in what is supposed to be God's original home, that's somewhere where you definitely got to say no. Like, no. Like, and then you have raves going on, right? And we all know what happens at raves. People getting high, taking pills, doing drugs. And I've already elaborated on what drugs are and, where they're referenced in the law and how you're not supposed to be taking them or seeking people who have them or, using them and things like that. And when you do these things, to the events that have occurred recently happen, right? Because we're living outside the law, and you can't, like I've said, when it doesn't matter what it is, right? The smallest choice, if you decide to say, hey, this is cool, and you want to add and make up your own rules or take away and make up your own rules, you have now put yourself on a slope that you cannot stop. You can't. The slope is just keep going. You don't even have to start doing more wrong, right? You have just opened yourself up to whatever is going to sneak its way through the cracks that you have kept open. And those cracks that you have kept open will eventually fill up. And it might not be under your nose in 5 or 10 years, but eventually that crack will allow enough to come and fill up the room that you're in to where it's up to your nose, and now you can't breathe, right? And that's where we have the wars of the day. And the wars of today are not even wars, right? When you look at the law itself and you see what a nation is supposed to do pertaining to war, right? America doesn't follow those, and it doesn't seem like the Muslim countries follow those, and it doesn't seem like Israel wants to follow those too, even though Israel did declare war, right? But when you look at what's happening, when you declare war and you want to war against a nation, you're supposed to, this is the law, right? It's not me, it's not my opinion. So you can call it barbaric if you want to, but this is the law. If you declare war on a nation, let me find the law. Give me 1 second. I'm looking for it right now. I don't think it's earmarked. I can't find. I'm not gonna try to recall it off of memory right now. But one thing, if you go to war, you're supposed to go out to war against that city. And if a city makes war against you, right? Like if it says if a city on your land makes war against you, let me see. This is right now. This is one of the. This is 507. It's Deuteronomy 20:16 through 18. It says if a city on your land makes war against you, you should destroy the entire city and leave nothing alive. Right? So there's a city on your land. Gaza is a country. Gaza has different cities in it. But the city of Gaza didn't make war against Israel. So they don't have an excuse to destroy the entire Gaza, right? And I believe, I really want to find this law because I'll type in war to filter this thing out. Come on, man. Whoa. Yeah, I was wary. Okay. Here it is right here. It's Law 506. Actually, okay, so it says if you make war against a city and they want to make peace with you, then all the people of that place should serve you. If the place makes no peace with you and you win, you must kill all the men and keep all the women and children and livestock for yourself for cities outside your country. And that's Deuteronomy 20, verse 10 through 15. So it said, if the place makes no peace with you and you win, you must kill all the men and keep all the women, children, and livestock for your cities outside your country. And I believe this is the law that I'm thinking of. So if we look at that in current events, Israel did declare war on Gaza, right? But I don't know, right? And I know Gaza is not inside of Israel, though. It's its own, thing. It's not on Israel's land because it's carved out. If you look at it on the map, it's carved out, right? So Gaza attacked them. They did not declare war. There was a group of people. They tried to say this group of people was not, part of their governments. They call them extremists. Went over into Israel and started killing people. Killed, about 1,000 people, right? So Israel decided to declare war on Gaza, right? And at that point, Gaza waved the white flag. They said, we need a ceasefire. Which, in that case, Israel should be moving in and they should be making those people serve them. If Gaza did not, call for peace and they wanted to go to war, then Israel has a duty, if they win, to kill all the men, keep all the women and livestock for themselves in the cities outside their country. Right? But that's not the type of things that you see going on today. They don't make war. They just drop bombs. You don't know who you killing. It's not just men. You killing women and children. Killing the livestock. You burning up the trees, right? Because one of the things that goes along with war is if wait, let me find it. It says, let me find it. Oh, it said, okay, so this is Law 508 at this point in time. It's Deuteronomy 20:19 through 20. It says, when you go to war against the city, do not cut trees down that have food, only trees with no fruit, right? So if you're just flying over that land and just bombing the entire city, you don't send anybody in there for days, you bombing everything. One, you're killing the women and children, and two, you're bombing all the vegetation. You're just destroying it. Right? And that is something that you're not supposed to do if it's not a city on your land. And that is where you get all of this outrage all around the world saying that you're committing genocide and things like that. And you say, okay, well, the United States doesn't do that. You want to call out all these other people. But the problem with that is, right, the United States is a secular nation and they don't call themselves Jewish. You see, even if people don't follow the law and know the law, the energy, the universe is coming at you because you claim to be Jewish, which means you follow the law. So you're held to a higher standard because you're taking on that moniker of a law. You're taking on your reputation that you built is we are law followers. But then with our army and our actions, we don't follow the law. Right? And it talks about people who serve other gods and things like that and not being around them. And you live amongst these people all the time. They're the majority around you. And in previous episodes, I talked about how, a lot of Muslims, they have other gods and worship they have other gods. You live around them all the time. So, one, that shouldn't be allowed to happen. And two, when things go south and, due to whatever's going on, war breaks out, you got to handle it according to law. If you advertise that you're a law follower, that's why you see the world flip like that. It's the end is God. You know what I mean? Saying like, look, you shouldn't be doing it, because as a secular nation, which Israel is, but at the same time, you say this is a Jewish nation. And then we twist up Jewish with Judaism and being born Jewish, which you can't be born Jewish. It's a day-to-day decision. You gotta follow the law if that's what you want to go with. So you're going to be judged accordingly. So when you do things like dropping bombs like America does, people are going to look at you differently because they don't expect that from you. Rightfully so. They expect you to go in there, and if you do declare war on somebody, they expect you to carry out the war like a Jewish person, a Jewish nation should. One that goes in, and if victorious, and if no one waves the white flag, right, then you go in there and you kill all the men. However barbaric that seems, that's the law that we say we follow. And if that's not something we want to do, then we can't declare war. If you only plan to drop bombs back, then you can't declare war. You can just say, I want to kill people, which at the end of the day, you're not supposed to be doing. Right? It says if a man, it doesn't say you can, in the law, it does not say you can kill indiscriminately if someone kills someone. It says if someone gets killed, right, and that person's guilty of murder, then the people who was murdered, the people's family who was murdered can murder the murderer. Right? It doesn't say you can start dropping bombs on where the murderer lives at and just kill everybody. So at that point, you're guilty of murder. And that's why everybody is saying that. You see, because these people wanted to wave the white flag and they said peace. But you drop bombs, and as a representative of God, as you taking on that moniker of where Jewish, which means you follow the law, if that's what you scream out, then that's what you will be judged by. Period. You can't say that like that's like me saying I'm a teacher of the law, and then I start doing things out loud and in front of everybody and not correcting myself. The world is going to correct you, and that's where we got to be very careful where we draw these lines and say I'm Jewish or Judaism. I was born this, I was born that. We're a Jewish nation, but we're secular at the same time, right? Because it's a secular nation. It's a separation of church and state. We got to be very careful with those things because it leads to situations like this that don't make any sense and were easily avoidable if we were living under law, right? Because if we were living under law and a group of people decided to come across your border and started killing people, as a reasonable nation that's under law, you would say, okay, that's fine. They're quote unquote extremists. If any of them left and made it out of here alive, send them to me. And if they don't send them to you, then you say, okay, well, we can't come onto your land because we don't govern your land, so we're going to make war against you if you don't give them to us. So we can have them executed because they murdered here. Right? And then you decide, and then they have a decision to make at that point in time. Okay, do we want to go to war with Israel, or do we want to hand over these people who we're calling extremists and we say have nothing to do with our country and they're making us look bad? Right? Then they have that decision. Now I understand there were missiles being fired at this point in time from that side, and they were claiming, oh, it's this group of people. But that's more that you can charge. Okay, go give me those people. If you're a government and you're governed separately from these people, then make a demand. Say, give me those people because they're going to be charged with murder and, executed here. And if they don't give you those people, then you could make the threat. Okay, we're going to war against you. And then at that point in time, they have a decision to make, right? At that point in time, the missiles might stop flying. And if the missiles keep flying and they don't give you, what you want in that point in time, you say you're going to make war against them, make war against them. But when you make war against them and people are doing barbaric things like killing indiscriminately in your land, you don't respond in the same barbaric way by bombing away in their land. You do it if you claim to be a law abider, you do it in a law abiding way. You declare war and you go in there and kill every man in there. And you take the women and children. You don't rape the women, right? I'm not saying anybody raped women on either side because I wasn't there. I didn't see anything. But one of the laws pertaining to that is, let me see if I can find it. And that's what I'm saying. The law covers everything. Because when women hear, the women are spoiling things, they people get upset. And they say, that means women can just be raped and that's barbaric. But no, that's not true. That's why you need to know the law. If you do go to war and you do take the people captive, there's a law right now. It's Law 510. That's Deuteronomy 21:10-14. It says, if you go to war and take the people captive and see a woman who you want to marry means you go inside of her, right? You bring her into your home and go inside of her. It says you should bring her to your home. You should shave her head. You should pare her nails, change her clothes. She should be in your house for a full month to mourn her family. After this mourning period, this means after a whole month of her sitting around your house bald headed with no nails, right? You have to be able, you have to bring her into your home and have her live there for a month like that, right? Which most people ain't gonna want to go through that. It says if they after the mourning period that month, then you may have sex with her and make her your wife. If you do not like her, then you must let her go where she wants, and you cannot sell her for money or merchandise because you have humbled her, right? So there is no sex slave type of sex slaving women, raping women, whatever else, right? On either side. And that's how that plays out humanely under law. It's humane. And most law is humane that pertains to women and children. Not most, all of it is, right? But most women don't know that because we don't know the law. So those are future subjects that we're going to go over to see. Like, there are things like this in place that keep that. And when you see that happening, there are claims in the United States military where that's happening, and in other militaries where that's happening, where they go and defeat and they want to rape the dead. There's been accusations of people raping dead bodies and stuff like that. Raping the women prisoners and stuff like that. And it's pretty barbaric. If you are fighting a barbaric war where you're just bombing indiscriminately and going in, well then there's blood on your hands and you're gonna act like a savage. But if we're all doing this under law, right, where you say for a fact I'm making war against this land, and as a statement of war, if these people don't wave the white flag, I gotta go into this person's land and kill every man. That's a tall order. I gotta kill every land, not cut down the fruitful trees, and do all this, right? That's a tall order, and it's gonna make you think about if this is really worth doing. Can we work something out? Because if not, I gotta do all that, or else blood is on my hands. And that's why there's rules to war, because at the end of the day, you gotta really want that land, you gotta really want that problem to go over there physically, because at that point in time, if you got to kill every man, you're supposed to keep the women and children. You're not supposed to be it's blood. You're killing the innocent at that point in time, right? Then you got to come up with a plan. You got to really want it. And in most cases where we have wars and things like that, let's say it's the United States or whomever else, and you want to go over to some land, most of the time we're going to decline that. America gets it done a lot of times, you know what I mean? Like they they'll only bomb certain places where certain people are and whatever else, and they'll send the troops in there and bait all the men outside until they kill them all and put in a new regime. But as far as all the men, I know there's some survivors, right? And then that's where we have these problems. And if it's a problem for you to have some survivors, then you don't want to go to war. If it's a problem in your mind for you to go to war and not kill every man in this land that they don't surrender, then you don't really want that war. Places like America will do it, right? We've seen it in the past where they've gone to war with different countries, and they're willing to sacrifice the men, and they're willing to, they're willing to sacrifice the men, and they're willing to kill every man, period, until they wave the white flag and take over your government. But different places, might not want to do that. And in this case, I don't think that's really what was wanted to be done, right? When you start bombing the whole, thing, and you say, "Oh, this isn't our fault," because it's like, well, no, because kind of is, because you can't say you're responding to some dudes coming across your border and shoot. If they wave the white flag and they say peace, then they say peace. Now you got to start facilitating them working for you. In doing these things, you got to start making deals if they say peace. But if they say peace and you keep bombing, according to law, you are now out of line. So you got to save yourself from that. And I just I wanted to point that out, because when this first happened, I was all, Israel, and I was like, look, man, like they got to do what they got to do. Da, 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 da. Then I had a dream that the Washington D.C. was getting bombed, and I was stuck there, and I was screaming, "Yo, peace!" Like, wherever these bombs are coming from, I didn't do anything to those people, right? And they just dropping bombs, and one of them could have hit me. And this dream felt very real, and that made me reconsider my stance, because that is a real situation that may be happening. I haven't been in Gaza ground zero, but from what they say they bombing them. They say they gonna level them on both sides. They say that's what's happening. So, that it might be true. See what I'm saying? Because I don't think Israel wants to look unflattering, and I don't think they would say anything like that unflattering about themselves unless it was true, right? So at that point, you do have individuals who may even be Israeli over there, right? Who may be ducking down behind the building that is about to get struck, and they like, look, they need peace because they don't know where to run. It's bombs coming, bombs leaving, bombs coming. They don't know what's going on. They never shot a missile, and they screaming peace, and the neighbors that are their allies are saying, look, peace. They want to keep dropping bombs, and it's like, that's why all these outcries of blood are on you. As a law abider, you have to make sure you follow the law, and there are laws to war. I understand there are also, different bodies in modern day global government that have their laws about what you can and can't do in war. But if you look at those laws about what you can and can't do in war, a lot of them are quasi Mosaic law. Like, they kind of follow the Mosaic law, and they're pretty reasonable. And even if you don't want to adhere to those because you say I'm Jewish and I only follow the Mosaic law, then follow that, because we wouldn't be in this situation. See what I'm saying? And that's what happens when you want to live life outside of law. It always creeps up on you. It starts small. It starts with, oh, my rabbi made this so we can follow the law. Oh, now we have a book. Oh, now we have, these things going on. And now we have gay pride parades. And now we have a secular government. And now your wife can divorce you. And now, you can get arrested for child support. And now we have raves. And now it's fine. My daughter can go out and do these things and such and such and such and such. And now you got basically Sodom and Gomorrah on God's land. And no matter who you are, when you take that step outside of law and you say it's okay, this is the snowball that you set on the hill. it's going to eventually turn into a snow boulder and then an avalanche. And this is why we have to stop, because now we had a war where America's, doing whatever it's doing, and people hating America and whatever. And I don't know what all this is about. You know what I mean? But one thing I can say out of all this chaos, I hope people stop and say, there's a problem here that should be able to be fixed. And if you look at the problem that should be able to be fixed, you got the Muslims that say death to America, right? But at the end of the day, a lot of your countries need America, because at one point in time there was the rich and then there was the poor, and the poor wasn't, you know what I mean? And when the poor wasn't doing so hot, America allowed refuge and things like that. So you can't condemn it all the way, because a lot of people come here and get educations and things like that from countries in the Middle East and things like that. So you can't say it's all bad if you out here getting educated and you come here and you participate in the economy and take the money back to your homeland, right? What other country can you go and do that in? None. You can do that in Western Europe pretty much, and that's it. And then you have Israel's like, we own America, but it's at the end of the day, you can't say you own America, because this secular nation that you think is so bad took you in. At the end of the day, like after World War II, they took you in, clothed you, fed you, like a lot of other nations, and then help you get your own land. And say, so you can't turn around and say that less than 100 years later. It's wild. You know what I mean? And then you have America on drugs, gay marriage, and a whole slew of other things going on. And one thing I notice about America, even though America is secular, right? America does not claim any religion. And America is the government in America, no matter who you are and where you live and what you want to blame, America is made up of you, because you, from wherever you are around the world, you can move to America. And in your next generation, in the generation that you move to America, you can get a position in government and have influence over the American government. And in your next generation, you even have a shot to become the president of the government. Right? I mean, we just seen that with the last presidency. I mean, we see it with this presidency and the last presidency. Right? In this presidency, we have the United States has a vice president who is of Jamaican descent. I don't know how many generations ago her family was in Jamaica, but that's not part of America. It's a separate country, right? And she is West Indian, right? And then before that, we had a first lady who was born in Russia or whatever country she's from. I don't know, where. I think it's Russia where she's from, right? If I'm wrong, my bad. And that is what America is. America is a set of hallways that operate by a certain set of principles that at the end of the day can be fought for by whomever comes to America. America does not claim to be a Jewish nation that is following the law. America does not claim to be a Muslim nation that is following the prophets and a whole bunch of stuff, right? America is you. There are Muslim people in government. There are Christian people in government. There are Jewish people in government. So all of you all who are looking at it, and I'm not trying to protect America in any way, even though I live in the United States. I'm not trying to protect America, but this is a call to do some rationale and reasoning. Every one of these sects or not sects, but every one of these groups of people have drank from the cup of America, but they look down on America's morals. So why would you get in bed with somebody who you think is dirty, right? And go to that country and whatever else. One, and take help and aid from that place. Two, and then why would you turn around and say death to that place, or I own that place and run that place, when that place is not owned by anybody. The construct of this government is based on the people. You as a person can get a position in that government no matter what walk of life you come from. And I'm not talking about corruption. I'm not talking about groups of people who will kill you if you become president. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about period. If you are a person who doesn't, not a criminal or whatever else, you do have the possibility and you do have the ability to gain a seat in office in America, which is unlike many countries around the world that have monarchies and you got to be born in the right family, or you got to have, ties with this and whatever else to get anywhere in government, right? In America, you can be dirt poor, homeless, or coming out a project or a trailer park. And if you have the goals and you follow the rules, and not the rules as far as like politician rules, but like you don't become a criminal and things like that, you don't have a criminal record, you can become a part of the government and have influence over laws and whatever else, right? So America is a painting of what the people are doing at the time. So you can't turn and look to America and say America is the problem. If you turn to America and say America is the problem, you are at the same time saying that I am the problem, because there are Jewish people in America helping run the government. There are Muslim people in America helping run the government. There are Caribbean people in America helping run the government. There are Mexican people in America helping run the government. There are people of South American descent in America helping run the government. There are also the same groups of people taking aid from America at the same time. So you are creating America. America is just a set of hallways. The faces have changed many and many a time. You are looking at your creation. It's a painting of you, period. And the painting these days says that you do not respect God and his laws. That's the painting. The painting is you love prostitutes. The painting is you love fast money. The painting is you love witchcraft, aka drugs. That's the painting. And even if your land isn't rife with it, it's creeping in there, because you come to America and do it. You go to South America and do it. And even if it's not you, your grandchildren go and do it. And you don't cut them off from your family. You say he's Jewish. You say he's a good Muslim boy, but he goes to Las Vegas just like everybody else. You see what I'm saying? And these things would not be popular in America. These things could not be lobbied for in America unless you made it popular. You made it popular. Somebody made money off of it. Somebody is in government that is representing your interest, who is making it happen. You are looking at yourself, literally. So if you turn on yourself, the shots you fire are at yourself. And that's a separate subject about what's going on, but it has to do with Judaism and where it has led Israel. Right, to the point that we're at right now, which I'm not saying it's the end all be all. I'm not saying Israel is about to end and whatever else and such and such, such and such. But I have seen its moral decay over the years, and it's starting to look more and more like America. And that is of no blame of the elders that are there, right? But somewhere, like all of us, somewhere we dropped the ball, because I've talked about the decay of many societies. I've talked about the decay of brown people in America. I've talked about the decay of America in general, the drug problem. I've talked about the decay of many places, and I've seen the decay of Mexico over the years, right, with that drug trade. I've seen the decay of South America, right, rife with prostitution. You know what I mean? And these are things we allow to go on. But we have to stop. Period. It doesn't matter what group of people that you come from that may be doing X, Y, and Z wrong, and you can point your finger at the other group and say they're doing A, B, and C wrong and laugh at them and say you're better than them. We all, as people who claim to fear God, right? You go to South America, Mexico, most people claim to fear God and they're Catholics. If you're in America, most people claim to fear God and there's some sect of Christianity, right? If you go out to the Middle East, most people claim to fear God and they're either Catholic, Muslim, or Jewish, right? So all these people claim to fear God, but nobody's following the law, right? Even if you do X, Y, Z under your religion, you fail to do A, B, C, and then you point the finger and laugh at somebody doing A, B, and C. But at the end of the day, what we're not doing is coming together and correcting ourselves. So hopefully this is a platform where we can all come together and correct ourselves. Period. And we may have a better planet, right? At the end of the day, we may have a much better planet. And that's all I have to say about Judaism. I know I talk about a lot of things and this is getting pretty long, but that's all I have to say about Judaism. And I hope you enjoyed the podcast. And for anything that I said here in reference is up there on www.thekingslaw.com. Go look it up. And you can filter by different subjects. You can filter by text to see what law has what words in it and things like that. So you can look specifically for what you can find specifically what you're looking for quickly. You can look at it on your phone. You can look at it on the internet on your computer. Either one, as long as you have the internet, you can go to www.thekingslaw.com and do some studying and help and start healing your life the way you want to. You know, maybe all at once or little by little. And that's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you for joining me.